Hello, I wanted to talk about a problem with a GE microwave like this where the breaker will trip if you open the door while the microwave is running. And there's a lot of discussion on this in the internet that has to deal with the interlock switches in the door, but there's a tricky part to this that may not show up in some of those other videos. So what I'm going to do, I've already taken this control panel out of the way, and there's plenty of videos online about how to get into the microwave here. You don't have to drop it down to be able to do this. You take that control panel off and disconnect the wires inside. But here's where the two door interlock switches are right here. There's actually three, but only two of them are linked together with the main magnetron. There's the top one right here. There's the bottom one right here. And then the third one down here, this just is for the control panel sensor to let it know that the door is open. So the light goes on and the controls work differently when the door is open than when it's closed. So that one doesn't really play into the high power part of the microwave, but these two do. The top one up here is the primary, and when the door opens, that switch will separate and disconnect the main power from the magnetron back here, the high voltage transformer and the magnetron. The second one out down here does the opposite though. That one is normally open. With the door closed, that switch is apart, but when the door is open, then that one will come together like this and it will short across the high voltage transformer to basically drain all the power out of that very quickly. So again, door opens, this one closes down here. But the problem is, if those don't happen in that order, what you're going to get is this one staying closed while this one closes down here. And when that happens, you get power dumped all the way directly from your line voltage down to neutral. In other words, you get a dead short across these two switches right here if they do not open in the right order. And you can see right now that that's going to happen. I've got this connected up to my meter. I'm going to turn the meter on to an ohm setting or a continuity setting. I'll even turn the beeper on. Now, not every meter is fast enough to catch this. A Fluke's pretty good at responding very quickly to changes in resistance, but not every meter is going to do that. And so if I open the door right now, you should have heard that slight beep right there. And that's an indication that if I had this connected to power right now, that I would have blown the breaker. Because the way I have my leads for the meter right now, this one is basically at the power supply. And then this one down here, I have the bottom connector moved off of this switch, but the top one's still connected. And this one would be then connected down to the power relay and down to ground. And that's the one that we want to avoid coming into contact with this at the same time. And so again, you can see when I open the door, like that, I get that short beep right there. Now, one solution for this, some people on the internet say, is to replace the switches. And it is possible that if the switches are not opening and closing very crisply at all, then what will happen is that you will have them open in the wrong order. But that's not always the problem. What's going on right here is that this whole bracket right here, this whole plastic bracket, can actually rotate slightly in its mounting against the metal front of the microwave. And if it's rotated the wrong direction, or if it's shifted after years of pushing and pulling on it, then what will happen is one of these will open before the other one. So one solution here is to loosen these screws up here and to shift this plastic bracket as far backwards at the top as possible. And I'm using the screwdriver that's closest in the screen right here. It's a little bit awkward to do with one hand. I'm using that screwdriver there just to put a little bit of pressure on that plastic bracket so that it's forced backwards as much as possible. I've also added a second screw here that was not there when I originally opened this up because I want to prevent this bracket from shifting as much as possible. So this is what that upper part of the bracket looks like after I've tightened those two screws in there. You can see there's a little bit of a gap right in here in the front, so that plastic piece is back away from the front. It can't go back any further because this tab up here, which is connected to it, is all the way back at the back of its hole, and so that's the furthest back it can go. And I made sure that these two screws here were as tight as possible so that that didn't shift. And that's why I added the second one to prevent this from moving as much as possible now. And then if we back out and we close the door, you can see no more no more beep where we get the dead short between the power and the ground. However, if that's not enough, I want to point out that there is a design flaw in this door, and that is if you look at these two hooks on the door, these two pawls as they call them, what's supposed to happen is that this bottom one should contact and then the top one should contact at the same time. But what you should notice on the door is it's actually possible to twist this door a fair amount. And that's way more twist than I'm able to adjust this bracket back here. So if I close the door like this and I pull on it at the top, if I rotate the top outward, everything's great. In other words, if the door's angled like this, we're good. But if you open from the bottom, and if you open it just the right way, where you angle the bottom out first, you're going to get that dead short no matter what. And there's absolutely nothing you can do to adjust this far enough to prevent that from happening if you twist on that door as you open it up. So that is a design flaw, because that's a pretty common user action to grab towards the bottom of this and pull on it like that. And there, like I said, there's nothing you can do. So if you've made this adjustment and you simply can't get it to do anymore, remember to pull on the center or on the upper of this door like that, and that will avoid that particular issue that we see here.